everyone. Sorry it's taken me a while to start posting again. I've been extremely tired and pretty nauseous, so I haven't done that in a while. So yeah, I'm hoping to start feeling better soon. So this is going to be a recap video because I am currently almost 18 weeks, so this is going to be recap from week 3 to week 15. Also when we found out the gender. So, start out with week 3 is when I found out, which was basically, I started testing at 11 DPO, and what DPO is days past ovulation. I usually ovulate on day 14. I wasn't tracking, but so I'm basing that's when I ovulated, and that's what I'm counting it from. And on that 11 DPO, I got a very, very faint positive. I'm going to post a picture of all those. And then the next morning, which was 12 DPO, I tested again. It was a bit stronger. And then 13 DPO, I actually got a digital test as well as one of those that has a plus sign. And they were both positive, and obviously once the digital says pregnant, you know, it kind of, okay, here we go. So that's how we found out, and that was about at the end of week 4, so that was about I was about 3 weeks and 5 days at that point. So from that point on, it's pretty nerve-wracking. It's pretty nerve-wracking throughout the first trimester altogether, but especially those first few weeks or till you can get your first ultrasound, depending when you can get one. You really have no idea what's going on, what to expect, and how secure to feel about where you're at. So what would I say about those first few weeks? Because we didn't have a first ultrasound till 8 weeks and 2 days. So just if we want to talk a little bit about before, because I kind of knew there was a chance I was pregnant, so because of that, it's kind of hard to tell that those sensations or, you know, symptoms that I had, whether they were, you know, kind of different than usual, or if you were just paying more attention because you knew there was a chance you might be pregnant. And another thing that's really tricky is like everyone who's trying or has tried, pregnancy symptoms are almost identical to PMS. So it's really hard to tell. You know, sometimes you might feel slightly different, sometimes you might not. So I had definitely some sensations, like I was tired, I was slightly nauseous, a little dizzy, I was really cold and then really hot, but I kind of have those similar sensations when I'm just PMSing. I think the only thing that was really different is usually my chest gets very sore and kind of enlarged during that time, but this time it actually didn't, which is really backwards even thinking pregnancy symptoms wise. So now thinking back, I'm not really sure if I would have guessed at all that I was pregnant if I didn't have an inkling that I might be. So so that's about that symptoms. But yeah, so the first few weeks, again, I was, you know, I'd say till week 6, I was just a little bit tired. I was, you know, going back and forth between this heat and cold, like, you know, I was almost having menopause, and not like a little bit twitching, cramping, fortunately trapped gas, which actually made me really nervous at about the 5-week mark because it felt almost like severe cramping, which led me to believe that I was having a miscarriage, which I was really upset about. But once that went away, you know, and I still continue to have these pregnancy symptoms like sore chest and higher temperature and things like that, that's when I kind of started to feel a bit more secure. But again, you're still kind of nervous because you don't know what's going on. And then at week 6 on the dot is when I started getting nauseous. And the first day was pretty okay, but from that point on, I was pretty nauseous. And yes, some of it was in the morning, also afternoon, evening, so the fact that it's called morning sickness doesn't really apply. I'd say it was probably the worst at nighttime. So that was kind of like, I think, my major symptom and the main thing that I was paying attention to, because it would just not leave me alone. I had a lot of nausea, but I didn't throw up. It was kind of like that hangover feeling where you feel like you're about to throw up, but you actually don't, which is, in my opinion, worse than actually throwing up. So then we had our first ultrasound at 8 weeks and 2 days, and ironically the first time I threw up was right before that in the waiting room of the doctor's office. So I think some of it was nerves, but usually I don't have a nervous stomach like that. I've never thrown up because I've been nervous, so I have a feeling, you know, it's probably just the hormones combined with the nervousness. And then of course we had our first ultrasound, and it was the first time we ever saw really a fetus as well as a beating heart, so it was very emotional. It looks like a little gummy bear. I'm also going to post a picture of that. But it's also crazy to think that technically the baby's only 6 weeks old, because they always add 2 weeks to the amount that, you know, you actually are. So within 6 weeks that you already can tell that, you know, the baby has a head, it has, you know, the beginning of limbs like arms and hands, and especially once you see that heart, because it's very strong and it's very big even on a small little fetus like that. So it's just a crazy, crazy experience to understand how quickly they develop. And obviously that made us feel a lot better, that we knew that you know, everything was perfect so far. But, you know, the first trimester in general is very stressful because, you know, statistic-wise, there's so many things that can go wrong. But then, and then again, my nausea continued, I think, through weeks 8 to 10. I was still really nauseous, really tired, just like passing out. Like every time I laid down, I would just fall asleep, extremely exhausted. You know, slight stretching pains in the uterus because it's, you know, starting to grow. And then I'd say around week 10 is when my nausea kind of started easing up a bit. And at week 11 it was almost gone, and that's when we had our second ultrasound, when we were 11 weeks and 2 days. And actually the baby measured 4 days ahead, so we were 11 weeks and 6 days, which was nice, which means we were almost 12 weeks, you know, almost out of the first trimester, which was a nice little stress-free moment right there. The baby had grown so much. Again, I'm going to post a picture so you guys can see that, but it is crazy how fast they grow. So that was basically the end of first trimester, and from that point on, I kind of got my nausea back at week 13 almost immediately, and it just was pretty much as bad as in the beginning. So week 13, 14, 15, I was just, you know, continuously nauseous, but the nausea was more at nighttime. I was pretty okay during the morning, but then nighttime it was really, really bad. It would hit 8, 9 o'clock and I would be unable to function completely. I had definitely more stretching pains, and throughout this time I kind of had huge, what do you call it, bloating, which really isn't a bump. It's just, you know, a lot of things are changing down there. You're retaining fluid, you know, your body really doesn't know what's going on, so you go back and forth between looking, you know, the way you used to like having huge bloat, and you know, you kind of can start to tell when it starts becoming a bump because it starts hardening, it rises up a bit, you know, and things like that. But I still continue to just have bloat and go back and forth between not having it, having it, and then week 14 is when I felt like I finally got a bump, and I'm actually gonna post a picture of that as well so you can see that. And that was, you know, kind of a weird moment because it felt like it almost came overnight, but apparently, you know, the baby is still so small and has so much room to move that if the baby moves, your bump can completely disappear, which actually happened later on. You know, one morning I just woke up and there was nothing. I was almost back to my pre-pregnancy size, but it's just like, you know, if the baby goes closer to your spine. So that was kind of interesting, just kind of overnight kind of having a bump. And then week 15 is when I started kind of looking into gender scans, and they had a really, really great deal in my area, and I didn't know you can actually find out this early, but as early as starting 15 weeks with a 3D gender scan, they can actually tell whether it's girl or boy. So I scheduled it on a Sunday, and I was at that point 15 weeks and 4 days. And we had, because this place had like this amazing area, which means that, you know, I'd be laying on a table and they had like a huge flat screen TV, and then they had 2 catty-corner couches, kind of like a theater setup, so we could bring family. So we brought John's mom and dad over there, as my family's in Finland, so obviously they were unable to come. But we brought my mother-in-law and father-in-law there, and it was a crazy experience. I'm going to post some pictures about the whole thing and the 3D especially. The baby has not really developed any body fat yet, so it kind of looks crazy. But at the same time, you can already see the arms, the hands. In some pictures, you can see a smile. You can see the baby sucking, you know, the thumb, and, you know, like cradling their face and so forth. It was just like, you know, crazy to see that. Again, they're so young and they can already do so many things and have so many parts developed. So of course we're there, and she says, you know, well, can I kind of shout out the gender out loud? And I said, sure. And within, I'd say like 15 seconds, she says, well, it's a boy. And like, I just looked at John and I was like, we knew. Like, we just had a feeling from the beginning that it was a boy. It was like this unexplainable feeling. Most of the people in his family, that is now my family, thought it was a boy. Few, I guess, just wanted it to be a girl. We really didn't have a preference. It was eventually one of each, but it was like one of those things. I would have been very surprised if she would have said a girl. But it was weird still to get that confirmation. And looking back on, I think me and my mother-in-law were pretty much fine, but then looking at John and his father, you know, they're both kind of teary-eyed a little bit, so that's when I started getting emotional. That's how it always is, you know, John gets emotional and then, you know, I get emotional. I'm fine till I look at him, basically. So that was a really, really neat experience. I definitely recommend, even though the baby still doesn't look a lot like a baby, very strongly recommend, you know, anyone's interested in finding out the gender early, or just, you know, documenting like the baby's progress throughout. You know, it was an amazing experience, definitely. So that was pretty much, you know, I was a little past 15 weeks, but that was basically my quick recap. Wasn't very quick, but I tried to make it fast to kind of pretty much explain so far. Like I said, almost 18 weeks, so the next video is going to be about probably from like, you know, week 16 to week 18, or hopefully when I feel good enough to make a video. But yeah, if you have any questions, anything I didn't mention, I'm going to post like pictures throughout this video so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But if there's any questions that you had, or something that, you know, didn't make sense to you guys, just feel free to ask me. And thank you again for joining us on this journey. And to all of you trying and pregnant, you know, have a happy and healthy pregnancy and a lot of blessings. And you know, just try to relax to the best of your ability. Trust me, I know it's hard. You're always nervous, but you know, the only thing you really can do is sit back and try to relax, because your body's kind of taken over. There's very few things that you can do except relax. So you guys have a great day, and I will see you